Alright, what we got here is I have a new alternator and a bad alternator. This all started with a parasitic drain. Took it to the dealership. They put in a new battery. They said the battery was bad. 2 or 3 days later, again, went to work in the morning. My battery was dead. So, took it back to the dealership. They sent the car home and said there's nothing wrong with it. Your battery checked out and your alternator checked out. So, we brought her home. 2 or 3 days later, parasitic drain. So, while this alternator was still in my vehicle, I let it sit overnight. The next morning I went out and I put the ohm meter and I tested parasitic drain between the negative cable and the battery. And I pulled every single fuse and nothing changed. So, everything kept leading back to the alternator. So then I was talking to my father, and my father said, I bet you have a bad diode. And I said, well, how do I check that, Dad? He said, well, it's really simple. So I've already got the alternators out here. This can be done in the vehicle. But for this purpose, I'll do it out of the vehicle. This is your positive lead here. This is where your positive cable will go on from your battery. So in the vehicle or not, what you want to do to test for a bad diode is you have to put your negative lead from your multimeter onto the positive, and you're going to put your positive lead just onto the case of the alternator. On your multimeter, this is really small and you're probably not going to be able to see it, but there's a symbol here to test diodes. It's the arrow going into the wall. Right there. This is just a cheap multimeter, nothing fancy. One more, sorry. So you'll have that number 1 there. With the negative on the positive lead and the positive from your multimeter onto the case, you're going to get about 400 to 450 amps. This is a bad alternator. It's a little bit weak, but this is still passing to say that the alternator would charge properly. So then I'm like, well, Dad, it's checking out. And he says, no, son, reverse. He says, now, if you put your positive on the positive and your negative on the case, you should have 0. In this case, we're getting 735. That means somehow power is going backwards through the diode. If we go this way, we should have 450 and the power should be running the right direction. Go this way, we should have 0 and we got over 700. So let's go to the new battery now and see what the difference is. We'll start with our negative on the positive lead. If you can see that, the negative's on the positive lead. And I'm going to put the positive on the case. Look at that, we're right around 393. 393, 440. So that's the same as the good alternator, or the bad alternator. That's the same as the old alternator. Now, let's reverse that. We know we got power going the one way. This way, we should have 0. And I got nothing. Therefore, the diode's only going one direction, which it is meant for. Let's go to this one. Positive on positive, negative on negative. We're like 800. That's diode running backwards. Go to this one. Positive on positive. We can touch it, scratch it anywhere on this case, and we're getting 0. This alternator is good. This alternator is bad. The diodes are running backwards. This is draining your battery when the vehicle is shut off. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped with the parasitic drain.